Palais has become the centre of attention. 12 to 18-year-olds have told Newcastle Council what they want, and now it's being delivered. For the next 3 weeks, young people are learning how to improve what they already do well, or they're trying something new. But the workshops are about much more than entertaining students over the summer break.
If you could sum up the theme for the whole Palais, it's about teaching young people to be the organisers and managers of their own lives. And so for this whole 3 weeks of activities, we've taken that as the principle. So it's about teaching them how to organise and manage their own activities and events.
Today, students took the first step towards becoming a DJ, and this is one program that will go part of the way towards answering the questions young people have about their future and the skills they would like to develop. And it's the interesting as well as the practical which is being discovered.
A lot of kids were saying they wanted to get summer jobs or they wanted to get part-time jobs, and so we've got a careers professional to come in and talk to them about how to put together a resume and how to apply for jobs.
Brooke Webster, NBN News.
This is a sight Knights officials, let alone fans, are glad to see. Andrew Johns back in full training after a pre-Christmas surfing accident which slashed his calf muscle. Johns is expected to be a certain starter, along with Robbie O'Davis and Matt Gidley, for the historic trial match against Parramatta scheduled for Maitland on February 3, in a game that will have extra benefit for the code.
The proceeds of this game, which will be run by Newcastle Rugby League, will go towards the development of the junior rugby league throughout our district.
Adam McDougall, though, will be lucky to see the start of the NRL season, let alone trial games, with plenty of concerns still over his broken thumb and ankle problem. The Knights also want answers over why he wasn't correctly diagnosed until some 6 weeks after the World Cup final, when he returned home.
There was some concern about the treatment that was given at that time. And I think Neil Halpin, our consulting doctor, has written to the appropriate people to follow up on that for us.
The club, meanwhile, continued to prepare their case to show cause why they shouldn't be fined around $186,000 for allegedly breaching the salary cap, and have ruled out legal proceedings, for now at least.
There's a procedure to follow, and we'll go down that procedure and ensure that we extend right to the nth limit.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
Beach walkers couldn't help but get their feet wet this morning, with the high tide 2 metres at its peak, forcing swells up and across most of the sand. Doing a few laps in Merriweather Baths was a little heavier going than normal, with the starters blocks frequently disappearing. All the exposed beaches were closed this morning, with the protected corners at Nobby's, Stockton and Blacksmiths the only ones safe for swimming.
Well, there's a lot of push in this swell, not so much height in the swell, but a lot of movement in the water, and a 2 metre high tide early this morning is causing a lot of current along the beaches.
High tide's heaps better than low tide because the sets aren't as close together, and as long as you know how to swim and stay in close, it's really good, it's beautiful.
It's pretty strong. It's hard to keep up with the waves and stuff.
It was one extreme to another this afternoon as the tide dropped to just 0.1 of a metre. The alignment of the sun and the moon has combined to cause the extreme tides, with a repeat performance expected around the 8th of February. Strong southerly winds also started to ease on the coast today, and while some seafarers battled on, others chose the calms of Newcastle Harbour for a rest. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Swapping the footy field for a photo shoot, Robbie O'Davis is just happy to be amongst his teammates, but he won't be fully satisfied until he's back on the paddock full time. He's been training the house down since his return to running, with his foot fracture now healed.
It's too good. I'm probably injuring myself, other parts of my body for a change rather than my foot.
But O'Davis wants as much playing time as he can in the coming trial matches to prove to himself and his club that he's ready.
The only problem is when I'm sort of at full flight, the fact that there might still be something wrong with the injury tends to make me hesitate a little bit.
He admits the pressure of returning after Adam McDougall's stellar season at the back is also a factor as he works towards regaining the coveted #1 jersey.
The Knights probably can't put up with any more of staying off the field, so it's a matter I'm going to have to get out there and prove my wares again.
Matt Gidley, meanwhile, started back full-time training this week with a 6-week layoff from the World Cup, and talk is all about filling the vacant 5/8 spot.
It's the best thing for the team. I mean, we've got Tamara coming through and he'll fit in the centres and play, really well there. And and personally, I'll enjoy the extra involvement, a little bit closer to the action.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The picture of peace and harmony when they're asleep, but once they're woken up, it's a different story. Exactly how many have moved into the area over the last 3 months is anyone's guess, but it seems that over the past 4 weeks, their numbers have grown exponentially.
I've been down here fishing before, and this is the first time I've seen them.
They're fruit bats, and the National Parks and Wildlife Service says that residents shouldn't worry about their new neighbours. The bats, or flying foxes, are foragers who'll probably move further up the coast soon.
The flying foxes don't do damage. They do some superficial defoliation of the plants or the trees that they're actually roosting in, but they're an integral part of the native environment, and they provide a valuable service in terms of pollination, in particular of the eucalypts.
They also believe that the bats are grey-headed fruit bats whose numbers are dwindling, so people should try appreciate the temporary visitors.
The likelihood of the colony staying in its location for a long period of time is pretty limited.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
Despite the sunshine, it was a little wet on parts of Newcastle Harbour today as tugboat captains practiced their ballet routine for the Maritime Festival on January 20 and 21. Formula One powerboats will also be an attraction at this year's event, as well as a production billed as a maritime pop musical. 100,000 people are expected on the foreshore for this year's festival.
Really does show Newcastle Harbour in a completely different light than most people imagine it. So I think in its own way the festival has shown to people that this is really a fantastic spot.
The year ahead will be an exciting one in the port, with work underway clearing the Merriweather Street wharf to make way for a $75 million hotel development. There's the recent start of work on the Cruising Yacht Club Marina site and the planned relocation of the Maritime Museum to Honeysuckle.
The port's our greatest asset economically, and of course on occasions like the Maritime Festival in a social and cultural sense. It's very important to the community as well. So given all the other events and activities happening around the port, I think this proposes a year of opportunity for Newcastle and the Hunter region.
On February 2nd, a class action brought against Pasminco by residents of Bullaroo and Port Pirie in South Australia will return to the Victorian Supreme Court. And while the company is contesting that case, it says it wants people with legitimate claims to instead contact it directly.
If people ring the 1800 number, they'll be sent a form to fill out which will ask them for details of what their issues are, when they suffered the loss that they claim to have suffered, and all the circumstances of their claim.
However, Pasminco says the setting up of the 1800 number is by no means an admission of guilt.
No, not at all. The company's always been open to people who've got genuine claims. We're not about, we need the support of our community, and we're not about denying that from time to time we've stubbed our toe.
Neville Gwilliam is part of the class action. He, for one, has welcomed the move.
At least it gives the people that are more or less fortunate than what I am to be able to bring their griefs to the Pasminco crowd.
The number is 1800 808 914. Colin Baldwin, NBN News. John Hunter Hospital only provided figures on caesarean sections for the pilot study, an infection rate of around 2%.
That actually is a very low rate, not one of those that's been highlighted as being perhaps unacceptable.
In fact, the John Hunter's figures are said to be comparable or lower than those published. Bowel infection rates more like 3 or 4% than 12, orthopaedic figures around 2%, and Professor Spiegelman also estimates vascular rates to be less. He credits the figures, in obstetrics at least, to the hospital's shorter than average stay time.
The longer you stay in hospital, the more likely you are to pick up an infection in hospital. And part of the low rate, I think, is due to our lengths of stay, which are significantly lower.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Stephen Jones was supposed to start work today. He and his family moved down from Queensland so he could take up a position at Southland Colliery, but instead he joined 160 angry and disappointed former mine workers outside the gates. Just yesterday they were told they no longer had jobs after mine operators Colrock went into voluntary administration.
We were as surprised as anybody else when an administrator turned up on site and ordered everybody out of the pit.
Southland Coal immediately took possession of the site, calling in care and maintenance crews.
If we allowed that mine to flood or the roadways to collapse, you can forget a future for this place.
Administrators Sims Lockwood say the parent company of the operators withdrew its funding. It's believed workers are owed around $9 million in entitlements, unpaid wages and redundancy payments, although the exact amount is still being calculated.
We will not be leaving any stone unturned to pursue every avenue to get their just entitlements.
Workers marched back on site to collect their personal belongings this morning, but are hopeful a new operator will be found and they'll get their jobs back. They'll meet again on Sunday ahead of a creditors meeting next Wednesday. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
As trees get to a stage where you can no longer do anything to them to make them safe, and with risk management as it is today, we have to act appropriately for the community.
It's 12 months since staff stepped up their campaign to have the ageing and cramped Mater Hospital upgraded. But as yet, no real progress has been made in modernising the facility.
We're no closer to a solution at this point in time. The management say it's going to take a bit longer. They can't give us a time frame, but it's very frustrating and disappointing that 12 months on we're still here.
The Mater Board expected to announce the successful not-for-profit partner in September. The committee is still reviewing the submissions. General Manager Colin Osborne hopes more information will be released to the public in a matter of weeks.
The board is committed to try and complete this process as soon as possible. We're mindful of the fact that this is an issue about in which the staff have intense interest, and that's understandable, and we all want to draw it to a conclusion as quickly as we can.
We've talked about redevelopment of this hospital for 10 years now, and this is the closest we've got to it.
Staff say the situation at the hospital is no better than when they began their campaign.
Probably coping the same as what we were 12 months ago, and I think I'll put that down to the ability of the staff.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
What we don't want to do is to develop future ghettos or monstrosities. The standard that people these days accept is far higher than it was accepted 20 years ago.
In its 22nd year, the Catho Classic is attracting more surfers than ever, with 160 entered this year. After a week of near-perfect conditions, the strong southerly change upset things this morning, with waves around the 1 metre mark. Surfing in the Open Division is 6 times winner of the event, Justin Lee from Whitebridge, who's hopeful of a 7th crown. He'll have to beat last year's winner, Dan Frodsham.
Oh, it'd be a nice thought, mate. It'd be a nice thought, but it's been a couple of years in between, so time will tell.
He's already surfed in 14 consecutive Open finals, and on the form he's just showed in the previous heat, he's on his way to a 15th. I mean, still, that's a big call this early in the contest, but the man's done it 14 times already. Who says he can't do a 15th?
In the over 35s heat, defending champ Phil Adlington from Redhead dominated the waves. The finals will be held tomorrow. Newcastle opened up plenty of opportunities throughout the match, but couldn't stick any of them. Even Manyaka's classic free kick was tipped over by Clint Bolton. More than 10,000 fans looked on as both sides battled for a goal. The Olympic theatrics were worth a gold medal. Then, with just minutes to go, Ante Juric dawdled through the Newcastle defence and popped one in, to the disbelief of goalie Bob Catlin and the united crowd.
Without taking anything away from Newcastle's players and performances, I wouldn't mind swapping some players.
If your body is not healthy, no way you can enjoy your life, no way you can work. So this is very important through the training of Rita Kondo, strengthening our body and mind.
We believe fatigue may be a contributing factor. The traffic was fairly heavy at the time, and from witnesses that overtaking wasn't a cause in this accident.
The 160 workers had no choice but to pack up and go home when the operators of Southland Colliery went into voluntary administration. Just 4 days after they left the site, the workers met at Aberdare this morning, voting on a proposal to secure the future of the mine.
We're supplying enough labour to ensure that longwall can be moved. There will be coal produced, but only for a short period of time.
It would mean short-term employment for about 40 workers, but significantly also make the mine attractive for interested operators.
It's essential to be done to give us the best chance of seeing employment take place again at that coal mine.
And that's the real concern. Workers have been left out of pocket, owed around $9 million in entitlements, unpaid wages and redundancy payments. The Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union also has cause to complain.
Our labour company that we have a 50% share in, they're owed a substantial amount of money, and again all that does is strengthen our cause.
A creditors' meeting is scheduled for Wednesday. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Lucky to be alive, the 22-year-old woman was helped from the helicopter by ambulance rescue officer David Wells last night. Suffering shock, exhaustion and the effects of alcohol, the woman had entered the water trying to help two friends in trouble when she too became a victim.
Called out the person's name quite a few times and I heard some muffled voices in the distance. Kept swimming out some distance and found the person. She was very upset.
By 10 o'clock last night, ambulance officers had already pulled 4 people from the water. This late-night board rider paddled to help Officer Wells with his patient.
The helicopter pinpointed our location and there was a local surfboard rider who came out and held the lady above the water until we could winch her out in the helicopter.
At one stage, there were so many cars filled with onlookers, the waiting ambulances were parked in. But part of the shine has been taken off last night's rescue by a theft here on the beach. One of the paramedics involved left his trousers here on the sand. While he was in the water, all the cash was stripped from his wallet. Today, the beach looked harmless enough, but the dangers remain.
Just a quarter of those swimmers out the back of the flagged area, starting to drift down towards that rip area there. Just move further north, please.
Yesterday afternoon, 30 people had to be rescued from the same rip. The danger occurs when water rushing between two sandbanks forms a deep gutter capable of quickly dragging people beyond the breakers. The hazards are also much harder to spot at night. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's getting tougher each week for United to put on a brave face. Anthony Surgeon did his best today when told he looks like missing a week with an ankle injury. But it's the pain of seeing his side play well for no reward that hurts the most.
See, at the end of the game, all the boys were just devastated and we just have to get together at training and build the confidence up.
Surgeon rolled his left ankle after it seemed to stick in the freshly topsoiled marathon surface, a move that didn't please many players on Friday night.
It was top dressed and cored and fertilised and the like, but for Friday night it'll certainly improve.
It's points on the park that General Manager Jock Graham wants to see, but he played down speculation about coach Lee Sterry's future. While the next 2 weeks are crucial to the club's top 6 aspirations, the GM denied it could shape Sterry's future with the club, despite contract negotiations being put on hold until the end of the month.
I just think in broader club terms, we've had 3 home games in a row at home, 2 to go. It's really a crucial time for the club in relation to our top 6 aspirations, and we really should be focusing on winning football games.
The team is under no illusion what's needed in the next fortnight after letting some golden opportunities slip against Sydney Olympic. Several chances went begging before Olympic's heartbreaking winner in the dying minutes.
Now we need 6 from 6 for sure, so we're looking at 7 from 9 now. 6 from 9 is the best we can get, so we have to do it.
They'll do it without Peter Sakanis, who was outed for 1 week after his 4th booking.
if I win the race or finish quite up the leaderboard there, I need Kai to finish 12 places behind me, and then for Wesberg to be 5 and Stephen King 2.